I've been waiting all day for Sunday night. We got Bucs at the LA Rams. What could be better? Carrie Underwood, Al Michaels, Alfalfa, Kurt
not Al
Herbstreit.
Michaels.
Oh, no, it's not. What am I talking about? It used to be.
That's
used
Thursday
to be.
night football. That's
it
Thursday.
used to be, though. He used to
Yeah.
be the Sunday night guy.
Yeah,
that's Thursday night football. We'll wait for that against Atlanta. Okay, so Sunday night football is NBC, right?
Mike Tirico and Chris Collinsworth.
Mike Tirico and Chris Collinsworth. There you go. Okay. Wow, we got that settled. Whew. Sorry about that.
Yeah, you'll have Al and Kirk coming up for the Thursday night game against the Falcons.
Here's the problem. All these announcers have done everything, right? You used to have Tirico with Gruden. Remember that?
Yep. Oh, yeah.
I'll tell you what, man. What do you say, Tirico? And then you've had, now you got, Joe Buck and Troy Aikman on Monday Night Football, which is weird because they were the Fox guys. Like, they're all just kind of like jumping around. So, yeah, bad on me. But, yeah, Chris Collinsworth, Mike Tirico. It's a big deal. I actually like the Sunday night product more than I do some of the others. I don't know why. I mean, Collinsworth is Collinsworth, and Mike's great as a play-by-play guy, but I don't know.
I'll tell you why. Well, there's several reasons, but the video quality on NBC is so far superior to any other network.
Is that what it is? It looks better, right?
They use better cameras. They use better production. It is the by far the best production.
So see, that's funny you say that because I would not have thought of that, but it just like that it catches my eye. Like when it's on, it just seems like I don't know, clearer.
They produce
something.
The games better quality. They use better cameras.
The shots they get.
They spend a lot more money on that side of the production.
So they might even have like more cameras, for example, right?
Maybe, but the cameras are better. Like so, the picture just pops.
It just pops. Okay, gotcha.
The pictures for NBC are much better. It doesn't matter whether it's their college football, their pro. Like they do it right, where the other networks cut a little bit.
That's interesting. What an interesting angle. Yeah, because I've always liked it better than Monday night, and liked it better than just a typical game.
Yep, and I'm biased towards Collinsworth. I produced his talk show for years in Cincinnati.
Oh, he's good now.
When I was young, so I'm biased because I know him, and so it's hard for me to sit there and say whatever. But some people like him, some don't. Tirico's just smooth, and he's not my favorite announcer, but he's really good.
Yeah, and I tell you, you talk about if you were gonna pick the nice guy award in professional sports broadcasting, it's Mike Tirico every time and twice on Sunday. Most humble guy in that position. I mean, he's the voice of NBC.
Yes.
There's not an event he doesn't do.
No,
right?
I mean he's taken over the Olympics from Costas. He does
the golf,
football. He does golf. He does everything.
Yeah, Olympics.
He does NBA now that they got NBA back. I'm not sure if he's going to do baseball because they're getting baseball back now.
Yeah, he has done the NBA. You're right.
Yeah, he's doing NBA. He's their lead NBA guy too. I don't know if he's going to do baseball or not.
I mean, the versatility that he has is incredible. But, here's who he is. I'm a nobody. I'm absolutely nobody in his world. And there was a time when we did this thing on ESPN, when he was on ESPN. It was just a couple of people around the league that did like cover 2. We did it for First Take before that, Cold Pizza. And, it'd be about 3 times a week. You're on for like 2 minutes. And, we go to the NFL owners meetings and they always have, the first night sort of a meet and greet cocktail and hors d'oeuvres type hour outside, on the lawn at the Breakers or wherever the thing is. And invariably they, the networks bring in all their broadcast teams for the most part. And it's just, everybody in the NFL is there, like literally everybody. And so it's more of a social thing, I think, for the television, beeps and whatnot. And they do, they do camera stuff. They do stuff on camera during the day with GMs and stuff. But Tirico, so I'm at the buffet, I don't even know, like the big shrimp, the boiled shrimp or something. I don't know what I was going for. And I always feel weird because like clearly who these people are because you see them on your TV all the time, right?
Yep.
But if you don't know them, I always felt bizarre going, "Hey, Mike," or "Hey, Chris Collinsworth." You know what I mean? Like, who the hell are you? But before I could say hello, I swear to you, he looks up, sees me, goes, "Hey, Rick Stroud, how are you doing, man?" I'm like, first of all, how do you know my name? Okay. And I'm like, "Great, Mike. It's great." He goes, "Hey, I just want you to know," and there's not an insincere bone in this guy's body because what I'm going to say is going to sound like complete BS. I just want you to know, man, I listen to you all the time on that first day. You do a great job. I love those. The notes you do are really interesting. I'm serious. I'm not just, I go, wait a minute. You're telling me I do a great job? You're like the voice of ABC, right? And it was just, but it was not condescending. It wasn't put on. And like literally before I could say hello, he did.
Mm-hmm.
And he literally, and then he'll come to town, when the Bucs are on Sunday Night Football, knows everybody's name, which I think is a talent that has escaped me, but I think it's really endearing when people pay attention and know everybody's name, especially when you consider all the people they've met, right?
Yep.
But he's one of these guys that never forgets a name, and yeah, just likable as likable can be. Like there's not a nicer guy in broadcasting than Mike Tirico, just isn't. So Sunday Night Football, Carrie Underwood be there. And the Bucs go to the Rams and SoFi Stadium, which is my favorite stadium in the NFL right now. It doesn't have the nostalgia, obviously. It's not Green Bay, right? Which is a close second for me, or some of these places that have been around for a while. Soldier Field, which is weird because it looks like they put a spaceship in it. A lot of good.
Get rid of that too. So
I know they are, yeah. And then Seattle is nice, but so SoFi is just they spent $2 billion and it's got breezeways and the weather's great and the ribbon boards and everything. The problem is in LA, no one really roots for their teams. So, they'll be, if the 49ers visit the Rams, it's taken over. Like it's a lot like Tampa that way. So, there's not necessarily this quintessential home field advantage, even though right now, pound for pound, as we do this going into Sunday night's games, I think the Rams are the best team in the National Football League. I think they're better than the Patriots. I think they're better than anybody in the AFC, and they're leading the NFC West, having just beaten Seattle. And no one's playing better. Matthew Stafford, 27 touchdowns, just 2 interceptions. Those receivers that they have with Devontae Adams. I mean, it's a complete team, and their defense is really one of the best in football. It's hard to believe you can move on from Aaron Donald and get someone like Jared Verse and some others that have stepped in there and just been phenomenal. So this feels like the Rams' year to me a little bit, leading the West, and then they're going to play a Bucs team that that's struggling. I mean, they're struggling. They've lost 2 in a row, 3 out of 4. This could be 4 out of 5. The confidence isn't really that high, especially on defense. And I think if there's one, it's a double-edged sword because Stafford has been so good with the football, right? Only 2 interceptions, all those touchdowns. The one thing you'll know about playing Stafford, which may in a weird way help the Bucs, is that he's going to be in the pocket. This is not a guy that's going to extend plays. They've gotten in trouble the last few weeks with Drake May. Certainly last week they got in trouble with quarterbacks that can, keep plays alive, and then you have to plaster the receivers for 4 or 5 seconds, and you see guys like Benjamin Morrison get out of position, and someone like just launching footballs, like Josh Allen can. With Stafford, a little bit different. He reads it out extremely quick. The ball comes out of his hands. He's deadly accurate, has a strong arm, but he's not going to run away from you. If you get a good blitz, if you get a good rush, if you get in a situation where he's going to throw, he's vulnerable, but he can also cut you up because you're bringing more than you can cover sometimes. And he will not be wrong about who his hot route is, who his open guy is, and he's got great weapons on the outside. So it's going to be kind of a counter-punching type game, I think, between Todd Bowles and Sean McVay, who there's really no one better than Sean McVay. He's got a lot of disciples around the league that he has spawned, obviously that are doing very well, in places like Green Bay and such. But Sean McVay is phenomenal, and it'll be a real challenge for their defense, which has been playing well. They simply, you'd like to bring pressure, but like they can't get home with 4 right now, and so that means that Bowles is going to have to, take safeties and bring them downhill, or take linebackers, and Stafford's seen it all. He's seen it all, and he's going to exploit it. And it's going to be, they have to score a lot of points, much like they did score but didn't win, last week. I think they're going to need 30 points to stay in it. I just it doesn't. This is the least confident I've been of these 3 games that the Bucs had. With obviously with the Patriots, starting with them, and then last week at Buffalo. This one of the 3 was the one that I said, yeah, they're not going to win that. But it is the National Football League, and you don't know week to week which teams are going to show up, when injuries are going to be. I saw where the Rams now are missing, I think not one, but maybe a couple tight ends, including Tyler Higbee from Eastlake High. He's on IR now. That's been a thing with him of late. So, they like to run a lot of 3 tight end sets. Maybe that changes what they're able to do. Maybe they're not as effective. So, a lot of different ways you can go in this one. But the bottom line is the Bucs need a win. They need a win in the worst way. It's not about, hey, they played well, or, no one got hurt or whatever. No, you need a W. You need a W. And if you were to get this one, let's say on the off chance, because I think they're underdogs by like 6 or 5.5, 6. Let's say you get this one. You're playing with house money now, man. Like you're cooking with gas. You're back on the winning side. You've got very winnable games at home against Arizona the next week. At home against New Orleans, and then a Thursday night game in Atlanta, who's sort of circling the drain right now with Michael Penix being down and their quarterback situation being what it is. I think Raheem Morris is going to get fired because I think they're going to fire the GM. The GM went out and used up first round capital on a couple of pass rushers that can't play, that aren't productive, and they're going to need that next year to move on, maybe from Michael Penix and certainly from Kirk Cousins. So, if you fire the GM, I think the coach is going with you, because I think a new broom, sweeps clean, and I think that's where it's going to go. But yeah, the Bucs, look, this is what they've done every year, and we're going to see pretty soon whether they can sustain this, go into a midseason slump and then battle yourself out of it. One day, 1 year, and it could be this year, they're not going to be able to pull that off. Carolina will be too good. Something will happen, along the way where you'll face an upset you weren't expecting, and maybe this is the year. But if you got this one, you're playing with house money, because, clearly Carolina has some tough games. They still got to play the Rams, San Francisco, and Seattle, I believe. I think they have that NFC West gauntlet that they have not played yet. So there's some opportunity there. And then you got Carolina twice in the final 3 weeks of the season. So not all will be lost if the Bucs lose, but if they win, it's a hell of a momentum, and just a great job for them to turn it around. I think there's going to be some changes. Like I said, I think we said the other day, on defense, I look for Jacob Parrish maybe to play the other outside, defensive back, with Jamal Dean probably going to be out in this game. I don't think that they are happy with the way Morrison has played. Not that he won't play, but just, I think they'll try Parrish instead. Maybe that helps, maybe not. But these receivers are really good. Stafford's really good. They can run the football, and you just can't turn it over. You got to be really careful with this team. So we'll see. It's a long season, man. It doesn't, they could not be. It's possible. I have to look this up. The last time the Bucs weren't in first place in the NFC South, but it's been a minute. I mean, Atlanta beat them twice last year, so it took them a little while to take control of that division. But when they did, they didn't give it up, and they've been in first, since the first day of this year. So it's been many, many months, and it could be changing by Sunday night. We'll have to see. Hey, we got some mailbag questions to wrap up the week. First, hey, let's get on down to Breitling Boutique, folks. Speaking of football, you like the Buccaneers? You like any teams? Well, if you go to Breitling Boutique at International Plaza Mall, they've been celebrating the NFL's 104th year anniversary with 32 different team watches. But this is only while supplies last, and they are going fast, my friends. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to Breitling Boutique, center of International Plaza Mall, second floor. Go in there and ask to see these watches. There's a couple in the window. Now, these are Chronomat watches, the men's watches, with the team colors as the face of the watch, the logo inside. Absolutely beautiful. They also have, their regular men's watches, the Chronomats, the Navitimers, watches for your wife, your girlfriend. These are sports watches, extremely durable, really beautiful timepieces, and she can choose from any different kind wristband that she wants in terms of colors and things like that. It is Breitling Boutique, folks, International Plaza Mall. You're going to love the customer service. Go in there, have a drink, find out about these beautiful watches. And when you go, please let them know that you heard about it right here on Sports Day Tampa Bay. All right, we can wrap up with some mailbag questions at the end of the week here. Let's get started.
All right, K-Red had tweeted, if the Bucs win another division title through all these ridiculous injuries, is it time for Jason Licht to win GM of the Year?
I thought it was time last year, but yeah, with these injuries, I think you have to at least consider that that's a mitigating factor. You know, it's Howie Roseman, I think, has done a great job, and I believe he may have won it last year. I'm not exactly sure, but certainly he's somebody that's made a lot of deals for players, and there will be competition as there is every year. But what Jason has done, kind of surviving these injuries and building a team that year in year out is competitive, for their division, winning the NFC South. If they did it this year, it'd be their 5th straight year. I think it'd be like their 6th or 7th straight year in the postseason. They won a Super Bowl during that time. They've done it with different quarterbacks, different coaching staffs as well since they won the Super Bowl. I mean, a lot of leftovers, obviously, from Bruce Arians' staff, but then Todd Bowles has made a lot of changes as well. And just, getting the quarterback straightened out after Tom Brady and having Mayfield come in here and play the way he has. I don't know why people don't talk more about Jason in that regard. Most of his draft picks are still on this team from the last 4 years, and in salary cap football, that's important. So they not only draft, but they develop guys. Has he hit on everything? No. Like, he cannot draft an edge rusher to save his life. Don't know why. Their best pass rushers have been free agents. Shaq Barrett comes in for a year, winds up leading the NFL with 19.5 sacks. They did that with JPP in the trade with the Giants, and that's how they won the Super Bowl. So there's been all kinds of stuff in Ndamukong Suh and others, but for whatever reason, the Achilles heel has been not being able to find, those edge rushers, and they're hard for any team to find. I mean, Atlanta's still everybody's looking for one, but I would say that would be the one sort of criticism I would have about him of late is that he's not been able to find that establish that pass rush that they need. But yeah, I would be down for Jason. And look, if they get to another Super Bowl and win it, now you're talking about a guy with 2 Super Bowl rings. He would be very much a candidate at that point, having been here already, 12 seasons. He'd be a candidate for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. You win a couple Super Bowls, you got to be in that discussion.
Well, it'd be a couple Super Bowls with almost completely different roster.
Great
Definitely
point.
Different quarterback. I mean,
different head coach. Yeah.
Yeah.
Different quarterback. Sure.
It's not like it's, you just went back to back with the same unit.
No. Mm-mm.
Like, I mean, this roster is completely redone since Brady left and
never really fell off, in terms of like you stayed competitive. No one does that, by the way. When you're $80 million over the salary cap, usually that means you're going to have a couple of really lean years.
Mm-hmm.
And they were able to draft well enough to where most of the draft picks made the team and flourished because they were good players. And then they found Baker Mayfield, another huge step in the right direction for somebody that was going to replace a personality like Tom Brady. You got a guy who's authentic and can really play, and that's rare. That's really rare. So yeah, I've told Jason this. I said, look, man, you win another Super Bowl, and I don't think that's beyond the pale, with Baker over these next few years. You're talking about being a Hall of Fame candidate. I mean, he's already been in the league 11, 12 years. So his tenure is way up there, and he's won, consistently won. And now it's
now he has. Early in his career, he didn't.
But. Oh no, six years, no playoffs. I tell him this all the time. Like, not many people can survive that. Like, you don't get a 7th season if you don't make the playoffs in 6 years. But 5 of those was spent trying to make Jameis Winston work, and that was an organizational decision. Not that he wasn't in on it, but the ownership wanted Jameis Winston to work.
Yep.
So, you go 5 years doing that. And that's a lot of effort and a lot of sweat and blood and tears from these other players, from Mike Evans and Godwin, all those guys that didn't get to see the postseason, right? And now they're kind of spoiled. They won a Super Bowl. They want to get back. They get to the postseason every year. So he's completely turned that around for sure.
All right, Lewis had tweeted. He says, in what ways are the Bucs a stronger or a weaker team than last year? At 5-1, it seemed like they took a big step up, but many of the offensive and defensive numbers have declined. Injuries are a factor, but the defense is arguably healthier this year. What do you think?
The defense has been relatively healthy. I think it's much weaker. And when I say weaker, like I didn't think they were great last year by any means. I kind of thought that they would, if you recall, the injuries were really affected the defense a year ago because Antoine Winfield Jr. was not himself. He played about 9 games. You had a lot of injuries to guys like Jamel Dean, Zion McCallum missed a few games. Kalijah Cansey missed a whole bunch. It was pretty much whack-a-mole on that side of the ball. And because of that, it was almost like you gave them a little bit of a hall pass. Now this year, they've been relatively healthy on defense. Yeah, they did lose, Kalijah Cansey for the season, which was just huge, no question. But Elijah Roberts has come in and played really well, and others. So I think where they're weaker though is on defense, particularly pass defense. I don't get it because I think their secondary is strong, but Levante David, great guy, great player, legendary player, should be a Hall of Fame player, all of that. He's still making plays, even at age 35, but he can't erase the mistakes, right? When there's a mistake in coverage or somebody gets a bad fit here or there, he's not fast enough to take care of that the way he used to be, And, we've talked a lot about just their inside linebackers, how Servasier Dennis has struggled in coverage pretty much all year, covering backs out of the backfield. Talking about huge splash plays, in Detroit against Atlanta. So from that standpoint, not having Kalijah Cansey, not having a bona fide edge rusher. Look, they hoped Hassan Reddick would be that guy, and he did take some pressure off early on in terms of double teams and things like that. But he's been a bust. He's been exactly what he was with the Jets, one and a half sack guy. It's not his fault. He doesn't want to be, injured, but that part just hasn't worked out. So I don't think they're as strong on defense, with the exception of they're healthier. Does that mean that they're better? No, the numbers would tell you they are, but I think it's marginal. I don't think it's a vast improvement. And then offensively, there's just no way they can be as good. Even with Emeka Egbuka, you don't have a Mike Evans, you don't have a Chris Godwin, you don't have a Bucky Irving, you don't have any of your 5 guys together on the offensive line. Even now, Ben Bredesen is hurt and Cody Mauch's out for the year. So the injuries themselves, I think, has made them overall weaker, even though they got off to a 5-1 start. And that was sort of the Camelot period of this season. Baker just pulling things out of his, what, with 2-minute drive after 2-minute drive and last minute field goals and all that stuff. But 5-1 quickly evaporated. And so for that reason, I think in some ways they may be weaker.
All right, Lucian had, I believe he emailed us, said, why do you believe that the other tight ends are not involved in the offense? Heard that Devin Culp may have a breakout year. Also, with the loss of Ko Keefe, why haven't one of the other tight ends or even a fullback been added to help with run blocking? Do you think that with losing Ko had a significant impact on the short running game? Thanks for all you do. Love your content.
Yeah, I think Ko Keefe's loss is one not just in the run game, but on special teams. You look at the downfall of their special teams, both in cover, especially in coverage. The return game's kind of spotty, but certainly in coverage, punt protection, field goal protection. Ko Keefe was that guy that played all the special teams, and then he came in at fullback when needed and really created a lot of space for the running backs. So, that has really hurt them. The tight end involvement. Look, Josh Grizzard plays mostly one tight end sets and 2 or 3 receivers. That's just what he's comfortable with. So there hasn't been a lot of opportunity for them to get, 2 tight ends on the field at the same time, like the Rams do. They'll play as many as 3 very often. I think you just find a way to get your best players on the field at once. But we've seen Kate Otten. I'm not sure. I have to look this up. I don't know that there's another tight end that has so much as 1 reception this year. Maybe a couple targets, but I don't think anybody has a catch besides Kate Otten, which is really weird, because that tight end's a big part of any offense, and he's somebody that they can rely on to make first downs and things, yards after the catch. Um, but I'm not sure. A year ago, I'm with you. I thought that some of the younger tight ends were coming on, and that they were going to have kind of a brighter future. But schematically, you changed to Josh Grizzard, and he's a one tight end guy.
Kate
And
Otton's the only tight end with a reception.
yeah,
Payne Durham has been targeted twice,
and Payne has 2 targets. Yeah, so there you go.
but
So
no catches.
which is weird to go this many games and not
Well, they're
have
the
but
only
one
team in the
tight end.
NFL without a tight end touchdown.
Wow, now that's a stat.
They had
That's
that.
a
They were
real
showing
stat.
that. They were showing that during the Bills game on Sunday on TV.
Because Otten should be a red zone target,
Yep.
and they're missing red zone. You're missing the size of Mike and Chris. You know what I mean? Like if I see one more fade to Sterling Shepard, the dude does not have helium. He can't just he's not going to climb the ladder. But yeah, they miss those guys. I mean, there's no question that. Um, but Cokeef's a good name for people to try to remember that that this league is full of guys like him that are glue guys, right? They make things work. And special teams, he was a captain. He's on every special team, and so he made things go. And when you lose guys like that, they're almost impossible to replace.
All right, Kevin asks, seems like we just don't use our backs as receivers nearly as much as last year. Am I wrong? Rashad White was so effective in Liam Cohen's play calling.
No, I don't think you're wrong. I think that Baker Mayfield this year has turned down opportunities to check the ball to Rashad White. Before that, Bucky Irving had a couple touchdowns. He was starting to emerge as a good receiver. I've found that there are guys available to him, and the thing, when Brady would play, he'd say, if you don't cover the guy in the flat, I will throw it 10 out of 10 times to him until you start to cover him. And Baker does not do that, and sometimes he should, and he'll tell you that. He's looking to make bigger plays. He's looking for a Mecca, and before that, Mike and Chris. And I think Rashad has elite hands as a receiver, and he's really good in space. He'll make the first guy miss. He's much better receiver, in my opinion, than he is a running back. I mean, that's his real strength: blocking, receiving. I wish Baker would do more of it, and I think that whether Liam hammered that home or designed more of those, throws, I don't know. But they do not use the backs as much, and a lot of times it's the guy with the football. A lot of times it's Baker.
I haven't watched like the tape to see, but I also know without Evans, without Godwin, without McMillan,
right?
Like you don't have to double team 2 or 3 different receivers, which leaves the flat open. Like you can you can spy there more. You can have that covered more. Because you're not worried about Mike Evans taking the top off the defense or
there's not as much space,
you don't have the tight end as a weapon. I mean, Cade's fine, but you have no other tight so when you're a defense, you're going, who am I guarding? Well, okay, I've got Ibuka I got to guard, and probably Rashad White's number 2 if he's in the game as far as receiving game goes.
Could be, yeah.
Over
over
Shepard,
Johnson,
or whoever, Ryan Miller,
Tez Miller,
like you're not; those guys aren't scaring you,
right?
But when you have Evans and Godwin and Ibuka all lined up, like I'll give you the flat all day long because I'm not going to let you take the top off. And it provides opportunities there, but without those guys, there may not be as many opportunities.
There may not be. I'd have to go back and look. I do think that I've seen, Rashad available a number of times that Baker just didn't look his way. And
oh, sure.
That happens sometimes with quarterbacks trying to make plays. For the most part in football, in today's football, because you can't, there's so much space out there. Teams spread you out. Your defense does have to pick its poison a little bit. They're not going to try to give you the easy shot over the top. Everybody's going to try to, keep people in front of them. 2 things you can usually get. I've heard Steve Young talk about this because he would love to play today. Obviously, all those old quarterbacks was. He goes, you can absolutely, anytime you want, throw the ball in the flat and get yards. Anytime you want. It's just not well covered. It's not a priority. The guys are available. He goes, if you can just run somewhat, He goes, 3 first downs a game makes all the difference for a quarterback. I don't like it when quarterbacks run, but he would run when he needed to. But he said, the eyes are not on the quarterback. There's so much space, so much grass out there. And when you spread teams out, that, the quarterback has the ability to pick up first downs. And anytime you want, there's an easy reception out there in the flat if you want to take it. It's just there. There's going to be one guy, man to man with the back out of the backfield. The back's going to have the advantage. If he can win the route, he's going to be open. And, that's just Young's theory. And I think it's mostly true. Like when I watch the snap, I'll just kind of key in on what Rashad does. And more often than not, he's just out there, because the ball doesn't come his way. So it's one thing that I think I wish that Mayfield would do more of. But now he's made a ton of plays down the field, to Mecca, and he's made a ton of plays down the field when Mike was available and some of the other guys. But right now, I think even he would tell you he needs to use, his backs more as receivers rather than Kate Otten has kind of been that guy. He's kind of using Kate Otten as his check down guy a little bit, where the matchups are 1-on-1. So, but I'd like to see him do more of it. And you're right, they did a lot of it, and I think they had the screen game. One thing that Cohen did was he loved the screen game, and he'd get that going. And that's a weapon. So that's another throw to the running backs. They've not done much of that, and it's just different play callers, man. That's might be the same offense, but everybody calls it different.
Craig in Vegas asks, if the Bucs are one and done in the playoffs, will the Glazers, just like they did with Tony Dungy, ask Todd to hire a defensive coordinator? Let them call plays or you are out, kind of like the OC issues under Dungy.
I think the difference is that Todd is the DC. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard to fire yourself. I think Todd still believes he's the best guy to do the job. I mean, he's had Larry Foote. He's got George Edwards. He could use those guys and say, hey, you guys take it. I'm not doing a good job. I don't think he'll ever get there as a head coach because I think his passion and his knowledge is the defense.
Yeah, but didn't the Glazers kind of with Lovie Smith kind of didn't like his plan and said, no, you're
Well, they fired him because they didn't like who he was going to bring in. Lovie took it over from Leslie Frazier.
That's true.
He didn't fire his own guy, but he basically said, I'm going to call the defense now. And that's similar to what has happened in Detroit on offense, where Dan Campbell's taking it over. When you do that, when you take over the play calling, and of course Bowles has had it for a while, you're peeling the onion because next you're the one out the door. I think Bowles just believes, and I think he's right, that he's a better defensive coordinator than anybody else on that staff. And even though he's a head coach and he has other duties, he's not overwhelmed by it, that he feels like he gives them the best chance. I think he would give it up if he didn't believe that. And I'm not sure he's wrong because he's forged a reputation as being, one of those guys. But would it be better? Hard to say. I've asked him, and every year, he lets somebody else call it during the preseason. He splits it up between Edwards and Foote, and then he always takes it back. I think he has a good understanding of what he wants to do to each team, and rather than explain it to somebody else, he just decides it's better for him to call it. Now, as far as the full game management, like being involved in the defense or play calling on one side of the ball, can screw you up on the overall, and we've seen him have troubles with, time issues and clock management and stuff like that because he's already thinking about the next series, whether his defense is on the field or not. And that's hard to manage a game that way. But I don't see him. I do see coaching changes though. I think it's possible. I'm not advocating for him. I don't call for people's jobs, but we know that, special teams has been bad. Thomas McGahee is going to be vulnerable his first year. I'm not sure what other changes there would be, but I don't see him giving it up. Every year I ask, every year he goes to training camp, let somebody else call it, and then every year he takes it back. And that tells me that he does not trust anybody else to do it better than he can.
All right, Tom had emailed. Says Todd Bowles needs help again. Sure, this team has had issues with injuries, but not too many on D. Other than Kalijah Cansey, and now perhaps Jamel Dean, there are not players that coming back to salvage this defense. Bowles needs help on D. Much like he struggled at time management and the Bucs brought in a time management guru, The Bucs need to bring in a defensive guru to coach this team up on D. I think his voice to the Bucs D has run stale, giving up 44 points. Ouch. I agree
Yeah,
with I agree with you and don't advocate firing people, but something has to give. Either the Bucs don't have talent on D, which I doubt, and then that is the issue on Jason Licht, or the players are not being coached up properly. Is it time to bring in a fresh voice and perspective on Bucs defense to help Bowles? What say you on the Bucs defensive struggles? Thanks. I enjoy you and Steve's perspective on the podcast.
thanks for listening. Yeah, I think he's stubborn. I think Todd Bowles is very stubborn about who he plays. You know, this whole Benjamin Morrison thing, every third series, I've gotten into him with him about that. I don't agree with it. I think it's cost them certainly the last couple games. The last game, obviously, Dean got hurt, so he couldn't do anything. So I do think he's stubborn. Um, Look, this is about players, not plays. This is what the National Football League is. Tom Moore taught me that. He's right. And what they don't have, they're not going to discover this year. And what they don't have is the ability to rush the passer, right? And when I say rush the passer, I'm not talking about he's going to end up with 45, 50 sacks every year, even if I'm playing. Todd Bowles is going to dial up pressure. But they don't have a guy, just one guy, to come off the edge, that can help them get to the quarterback. And when you don't have that, and you're having to be exotic, and you're having to have all these looks, the easiest thing to do is just sit there and cover two, let four guys get the quarterback, and never have to blitz anybody. If you can do that all day, then you're going to win a lot of games. But it's not that he wants to call all these pressures; is that he has to. And think about what Jason Licht has not done. Okay, he's not found an edge rusher from the draft. Now, he's not the Lone Ranger. There are very few teams that do it. They all spend a lot of draft capital on rushers, but they're not very successful doing it. And if you look at Jason's history, his best pass rushers have been free agents. Shaquille Barrett, Jason Pierre-Paul. When he drafts a guy, Joe Tryon, Shawenka, I think Yaya Diaby has a chance, but I don't know that he's going to be a 10-sack guy ever. Chris Braswell. I mean, we go down the line. They can't get to the quarterback. They don't have a game wrecker on the edge, and most teams do. Most teams have at least one guy, and they don't. And so it's about players, not plays. You can only do so much with what you have, and I think they're suffering inside because I think Levante David is at the end of his career, not the beginning or the middle. And I think Servatier Dennis has shown that he struggles in coverage. You can check the ball down to a back, he misses the leverage. They break a tackle, and they're in the end zone. They're scoring 50-yard touchdowns. So that's players, right? That's players, and players make coaches look really good, and sometimes vice versa. But you got to have the dudes. The team with the most dudes at every level. If you got all pros on the defensive line, an all pro at linebacker, one or two all pros or Pro Bowl players in the back end, you're going to win. You're going to win. They don't have that. Winfield has played better, but he hasn't gotten back to his all pro, level yet. We talked about Levante and Servatier. They have no one off the edge. Hassan Reddick didn't work out. That was their $14 million fix. We're going to go out and sign this guy. Hope he can rediscover himself. He didn't. He's hurt. He's got a sack and a half. That's what he had for the Jets. When it doesn't work, it looks really bad. So next year, they'll be like so many other teams. Their biggest need will be an edge rusher. It may have been this year or the inside linebacker, and they went for Emeka Ibuka. I don't think anybody's disappointed with him, but they had other bigger needs. They went for the best player, which is fine. But this is a team that cannot rush the passer. And believe me, in this league, if you can't affect the quarterback, that's why those guys get all the money. The guys that get the most money is the quarterback and those who affect the quarterback, right? Closest to the ball going back, starting with your edge rushers. You need those guys, and they don't have them. And they will continue to struggle because he's going to have to dial stuff up. They can stop the run. They got Vita Vea. They got, some big guys inside. They do not rush the passer, period. And yet you'll look up and they'll have 45, 50 sacks. So that's what it's all about. Anyway, thanks for listening as you guys do all the week long. Appreciate your mailbag questions. You can get them anytime you want to at SportsDayTB, at NFL Stroud, or my email address is rstroud@tampabay.com. Get on down to Breitling Boutique, International Plaza Mall. Check out all the 32 different team watches while supplies last. It's a Christmas season. Believe me, you're going to make somebody really happy with a Buccaneers team watch or whatever favorite team they have. Breitling Boutique, International Plaza Mall. Make sure you let them know you heard about it on Sports Day Tampa Bay. For Steve Versnick, I am Rick Stroud, Tampa Bay Times. Have a great day, everybody.